These are the two best thin and light gaming laptops of 2025. The Asus ROG Zephyrus G16 and the Lenovo Legion 7i. They're both incredibly thin, but still have a lot of power. But there can only be one laptop king. So which one of these is better? Let's find out. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. From the outside, these two are both aiming for a thin and light, professional looking design. The Legion chooses to have this separate hinge design, which means it has a bit of an ass, while the Zephyrus has a more classic hinge, a bit like a MacBook, which I do think looks a little better. They both have a full aluminum body, which means they're both incredibly sturdy and should take quite some abuse. The Zephyrus is a little more lightweight, but the difference is basically unnoticeable, but the Legion is noticeably thicker. In general, it's just a bigger laptop because of that ass. But despite their thin and light bodies, they do have impressive specs. The main difference, however, is that the Legion 7 goes a step beyond, with it having the fastest Intel laptop processor of 2025. The Ultra 9 285H is basically a cut down, more efficient version of the 275HX, which does make it a little slower since it has less cores. The big advantage of the Zephyrus though is that it can be spec'd a lot higher, all the way up to an RTX 5090, while the Legion 7 is limited to only having 8GB of VRAM. These two 5070s should perform similarly though, since they both have the highest possible wattage limits. Whether they can actually reach those limits, we'll have to see in a little bit. Their port selection is pretty much identical, but the Legion has a couple of its ports on the back as well, while the Zephyrus does not. Their charging bricks are about the same size, so big for a normal laptop, but about average for a gaming laptop. They can both charge through USB-C as well though, so smaller bricks are a possibility. Now let's move on to their keyboards. They do both have an RGB backlight, but the Zephyrus only has one lighting zone, while the Legion has full per key RGB. So it has a bunch more options, which do look cooler. The LEDs on the Legion are also quite a bit more vibrant, so in general it just looks better. But how do their actual keys compare? Well, they're both really nice to type on, but the Legion is a bit more thumpy and in my opinion it has nicer feeling keys. The Legion also has a numpad, while the Zephyrus does not, but the Zephyrus has a couple of macro keys at the top here, while the Legion doesn't have any. Now moving down, we have their trackpads. The Zephyrus's one is definitely bigger, which is nice, and while they are both made of glass, the Legion has this weird rattly noise on the left side, which does make it feel a bit cheaper. Both of their clicks are very nice as well. But the Zephyrus just feels and sounds better in my opinion. Moving up, they both have excellent displays, with them both being 2.5K 240Hz OLED panels. This is about as good as it gets in terms of laptop screens. They each have almost identical OLED panels, which means vibrant colors, infinite contrast, and especially in dark rooms, perfect inky blacks. 240Hz also means they're about as smooth as it gets for gaming, especially with the near instant pixel response times of OLED. And they both go up to 500 nits of brightness, which is plenty for even outside use. Is what I would say if the Legion wasn't about as reflective as a mirror. The Zephyrus laptops all have pretty much the best anti-reflective layer on any laptop right now. It is still glossy, but it handles reflections really well, while the Legion has no anti-reflective layer whatsoever. So if you want to use it outside, near a window, or even with a light on in the room, you're gonna be very annoyed by its reflectivity. For their display hinges though, the Legion is definitely better. It opens up way further than the Zephyrus, it feels more stable and has basically no wobble, and in general it just feels more sturdy. But the best of the best laptops pay attention to everything. And when we're talking about speakers, that's usually where you notice companies cutting corners. So which one sounds better? The Zephyrus absolutely crushes the Legion. The Legion only has downfiring speakers on its bottom, while the Zephyrus has both subwoofers on the bottom and a huge grille with top-firing speakers. The Legion does sound alright, but it doesn't get very loud and could definitely use a little more bass. While the Zephyrus gets about double as loud, has infinitely better bass, rivaling most MacBooks, and its surround sound that it has just sounds awesome. So if you want to fill a room with sound, the Zephyrus easily wins here. The Legion's webcam is slightly higher resolution and looks a little better, but the Zephyrus's microphone sounds leagues better than the Legion. Both of them should be more than good enough for web conferences and stuff like that though. But with them being gaming laptops, obviously performance is a huge factor. They might have the same GPUs, but the Legion has a beefier processor, so does that make a difference? Well, in Cinebench R23, they score about the same in single-core performance, but that 275HX absolutely crushes it in multi-core, since it has a lot more cores to work with. And in 3D Mark TimeSpy, the Legion beats the Zephyrus again. Albeit not by a whole lot, since, they're still the same GPUs. But synthetic benchmarks don't really tell you real-world performance, since they're not under full load. And these are gaming laptops after all, so let's play some actual games.
What did you do, man? No!
So as you saw, the Legion is actually quite a bit faster than the Zephyrus. In GPU-intensive games, it was about 10% faster, despite having the same GPU, which is odd, right? But in more CPU-intensive games, it pulled ahead by a lot, having noticeably higher frame rates than the Zephyrus, even at their high native resolution of 1600p. But they have the same GPUs with equal wattage limits, so does that faster CPU in the Legion really make that much of a difference? Well, while they might have the same wattage limits for those GPUs, the Legion actually reaches those higher wattages a lot more frequently than the Zephyrus. And more power means more performance. Couple that with a considerably faster CPU on the Legion, and apparently that gives you more than 10% higher FPS in games. But what does that mean for cooling? Does the Legion also run a lot hotter? Well, no actually. Both the CPU and GPU of the Legion stay a little bit cooler than on the Zephyrus, although its CPU did reach higher peaks, but just for a couple of milliseconds. So it looks like the Legion just has a better cooling system than the Zephyrus, which is why it can reach those higher wattages on its GPU. But which one makes more noise? Okay, never mind. I think the Legion just stays cooler because it's running its fans louder. But under normal light use, they both stay absolutely silent. But more power means more power use. So how do these two compare in terms of battery life? Well, I tested their batteries in two different scenarios, under light use and during gaming. In the light use test, I played a YouTube video until both their batteries died, with their displays at 80% brightness, at 60 Hz, and with their dedicated GPU turned off. And the Zephyrus lasted almost double as long as the Legion, which is quite a big difference. The 275HX might have more cores, but it lacks any kind of low power efficiency cores, so it uses a lot more power on battery. And in actual real-world use, the Legion probably won't even last a school day, while the Zephyrus will. Now in the gaming test, I played Battlefield 1 until their batteries died, with the same settings as before. And here, neither one of them lasted very long. Gaming laptops are not made to play games on battery. Just get a gaming handheld if you want to do that. But what about upgradeability? Because normally thinner laptops do not have the space for modular components. Well, here the Legion has a massive advantage. Because while the Zephyrus has its memory soldered, the Legion has fully upgradable RAM, which is quite impressive for this thin of a laptop. They both do have two M.2 SSD slots, so storage upgrades are very easy. And they also both have Wi-Fi card slots, which could be handy in the future. So while the Legion could be manually upgraded up to 96 GB of RAM, the Zephyrus is limited to 64. That is, if you can even afford RAM right now. But the deciding factor here is gonna be their price. So which one of these is more expensive? Well, here in Europe, the Legion 7 and the Zephyrus G16 with an RTX 5070 both cost about the same, being around $2,000 to $2,200 bucks. This is a bit more expensive than other thicker 5070 gaming laptops, because you're paying a premium for their portability. Now, as for America, they're also priced the exact same, being again at around $2,000 for their RTX 5070 models. Now, both of them do have 5060 models as well, which are considerably cheaper. So if you're interested in any one of these models, I'll put an Amazon link in the description down below. Okay, it's time for a conclusion. Which one of these is more worth it? The Zephyrus G16 or the Legion 7i? Well, these two are both amazing, well-built laptops, but it really depends on what you want to do on them. This whole video, I've pretty much been nitpicking very much, because these two laptops are almost perfect. But they are separated by the following facts. The Zephyrus has a way better display coating, which makes it a lot better for use on the go. And it also has a way longer battery life, so again, you can take it with you a lot easier. But the Legion 7 is simply faster. Due to its slightly better cooling and a way faster CPU, it simply outperforms the Zephyrus. So here's my advice. If you use your laptop on the move a lot, for example moving around classes in school or using your laptop on public transport, get the Zephyrus. Because it's just more catered towards that thin and light laptop category. But if you sit around in one place a lot with your laptop, I would just get the Legion 7i. Because that reflective display is less of an issue inside and it is simply the faster laptop. But as for me, I'm still sticking with the Zephyrus G16. This laptop does practically everything right. Yes, it is slower than the Legion 7i, but I'm willing to sacrifice that for a better display, speakers, and longer battery life. I also think it just looks a little bit better. Look, both of these laptops are awesome to use, and you're not going to be disappointed by either one of them. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwife, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Frosty Dude, Dropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, Flimsy, Aki, Disco Volante, Mr. Nuke, Sebastian, Christian Sands, Real Elf, Eric the Rat, Wesley Rhodes, Michael, Ghost Data, Anogadar, Abdullah, and Lewis. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also be supporting me as a creator to make these videos. And of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club. So you can use cool emojis like these in the comment section. So join the club if you're interested. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.
Okay, DRS is now available. The drag reduction system, or DRS, opens a flap